Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Florence Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I'm Sally Watts, and I welcome you here on this beautiful, beautiful day. We're actually taping this on Thursday, and it's gorgeous. The guy behind the camera is Jim McDermott. Hey, Jim. So let's go on in, and we'll begin our service, okay? So if you've been here before, you know the routine. We come on in. We go get our name tag. Look at all these name tags. When you come back to the service in real time, you can find your name tag. Mine's right here. I'm going to head up to the podium and get started, and Jim will get all set up too. Thank you. Be right back. Okay, let's start our Sunday service, all right? We're going to start by lighting the chalice, and I've asked our guest speaker today, you all know Dean Shrock, for crying out loud. I've asked Dean to come up and light the chalice as I read these words. Dean, if you would, please. We light this chalice to kindle the fire of commitment, to spread our beloved faith, proclaim the good news that we are all worthy and are all welcome, and none of us is left behind. May we carry this flame to all we encounter, letting our lives shine with its glow. Blessed be. And as we do every Sunday, right, we sing Spirit of Life. We have a wonderful recording from Jeff Lovejoy. If you've been with us the last few weeks, you may recall this. So I'm going to let my able-bodied assistant over here, Mr. Ray Plummery, our president, cue up the song, and we're going to sing Spirit of Life. Hardly wait to hear all of you singing that song when we're back together again in the near future. So some announcements. We are hosting a virtual food cafe at noon on Sunday the 26th. You should have received a link and the password to from the Eat Last sent to you by us. So grab a cuppa and join us for a lively gathering of foofers. Dean Shrock will probably join us, and if you have questions of him for today's service, you can ask those questions and just enter into a dialogue, okay? It's the what?
Sunday the 19th.
Sunday the 19th. Well, we're going to do it on the 26th as well, but this particular one on the 19th will be with Dean Shrock and all of you. Also, read today that the Unitarian Universalist Association General Assembly, which was scheduled to be in Providence this summer, has been kind of changed. And they're going to be doing it virtually, which is kind of a big deal, as my grandson would say. It's a big deal, Nana. And according to UUA President Susan Frederick Gray, she thinks that they're going to surpass attendance as a result of people coming on virtually. So stay tuned for some information on that. Also, the board met earlier this week, and we will be mailing ballots to all of our members to vote on elections of officers and directors, as well as next year's budget. Also, members and friends will receive in the mail a list of all of our community partners that we have as a possibility for next year's offerings. If you recall, we select 6 community partners, and of those 6, we then pick 2 months, and we give those organizations an opportunity to receive our funds. So if you have a nonprofit that you want us to consider, make sure you send it to us before the 27th of April so we can get it on the list and then in the mail, okay? Joys and concerns. We didn't receive any specific joy or concern to share, but I'd like to say that my joy is that I get to be here with you. even if we can't hug. It fills me with great gladness to be a part of the magical moments we create together virtually. Another joy is the news that we have lined up some fabulous ministers, soon-to-be ministers, and guests and others who are of our faith to be with us in the coming weeks. Thanks to the program committee for lining up the following. Carrie Gottfried, a young gal from Corvallis. We love Carrie. Reverend Sarah Scotchko. Reverend Dennis Reynolds. Our own Rosetta Jansen is on the slate to be a speaker, as well as Reverend Barbara Tenhoff, and maybe a return visit from Reverend Annie Holmes. Finally, I remind you that we have a dedicated phone line for those who wish to reach out, share what might be going on in your life, and if you need some support, I believe Catherine Hemmons is available by phone. Just give her a call, confidentially, 541-590-2656. If she can't answer, leave a message and she'll get back to you, okay? So, the other sorrow I have is I heard today from my friend Becky that her 20-year-old cat, Ticker, passed away. It's hard when we lose a loved one. It's especially hard at this time in life. Secluded and, you know, you don't have that furry friend to cuddle up with. So my thoughts are with Becky. Take a deep breath. The offering today. Challenging at times to ask for this when you're not here in the fellowship with me. But actually it's easy for me to ask you to continue donating to this fellowship and our community partner, Food Share. It's easy because I know you will do so if you are financially able, because you know how important this fellowship is to you, or you wouldn't be watching. So when you are able to do so, you can send us a check or donate online on our website and let us know how much you want to give to FOOF and how much you want to give to Food Share, and we'll make it happen. Easy squeezy. And you can also donate to your jar. Remember the jar? Keep it at home. If you can't do the other, you can maybe drop $1 or $2 each week and then bring this back to FOOF when we are together again. All right, Jeff Lovejoy has recorded a wonderful hymn that I'm going to ask Ray to play for us right now. It's hymn number 360, and it's titled, Here We Have Gathered. I know it's slightly ironic. There's only 4 of us in the room right now, but virtually we have gathered. So enjoy this beautiful hymn, Jeff Lovejoy, number 360.
Sun.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Today's reading I've selected from Windows to the Light, Enhancing Your Spirit with Haiku Meditation, from our friend Lynn Finney. And I've selected this one as you enter into another musical interlude with Jeff. It's something you can think about as you listen to this beautiful music coming up. Be still and listen to the restless wind, a stone, the small voice within. Kind of sets the mood. It's now my pleasure to introduce to you our guest at the pulpit. You all know Dr. Dean Shrock. He is here again from Yahats, and I welcome our friend Dean to the pulpit.
Thank you, Sally.
You're very welcome.
So it is unusual to be speaking to a mostly empty room, but I do appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. And when the service is over on Sunday, April 19th at noon, I look forward also to joining you in the Food Cafe, where we can talk more about what I'd like to share with you today. Most of you know about my background as a psychologist and a special interest in what tends to be called mind-body medicine, and how what we think and feel dramatically affects our physical structure and function and pretty much everything in our life. Well, with this current coronavirus, it's really made me pause and think, as I'm sure it has for many of you, is how do we manage this? And I like to think about looking deeper about maybe even there is a purpose for this. It's maybe some kind of blessing in disguise. And so I chose to look within, and while there are so many different approaches, some you may appreciate or know more about than others, in my formal training, it's been called interactive imagery, that you can literally learn to close your eyes and relax and center and connect with an inner wisdom that lies within you. Carl Jung actually had a similar approach called active imagination, where similarly, as he would say, using the term the unconscious, you could go within and learn to dialogue with this other aspect of yourself or your unconscious. And it's really like daydreaming on purpose. Only you're not asleep, you're very much aware, and indeed you can get remarkable insights to whatever questions you might have. And so whether we call it intuition, prayer, contemplation, I think intuition may actually be defined well as communicating with your soul. So when I look at symptoms generally, with my experience primarily with cancer, but many other illnesses, I really believe that symptoms are benevolent messengers, that there is a greater reason or purpose for the illness as a way to get our attention and what we really need to do to heal. And a simple example would be, say if you got the cold or a flu, it's very common for you to say to yourself or others to say to you, see, your body's telling you you need to rest or slow down. So that's the idea, that there can be a greater purpose. And this suggests then, had you rested or slowed down, then in fact you might not have gotten the cold. So, is there a purpose, potentially, for this current virus? And what I found when I took a particular meditative approach, which to me is just really learning to center, which I can do pretty quickly, is what came to me immediately about the purpose or what we need to do in any way to affect this virus, to make it go away, to become symptom-free, is to align with love. To remember who we really are, and that all is connected, that there is indeed a very deep purpose that this virus is serving for us at this time. I know when I worked with cancer for so long, families and patients, and when someone was diagnosed with cancer, it obviously at first is a very trying experience, to say the least. And when it involves potentially the threat of your life, the loss of life, it becomes even more a way to grab our attention, to be sure. But in general, I believe that symptoms are a way not only to get our attention, but around the idea that something's out of balance. So what is it maybe then that really is out of balance? And I've already proposed it has to do with taking this time now to learn to connect with this core truth of who we really are, love. Sometimes I've told a story about a tornado I lived through when I was living in Cleveland, Ohio, and how at first when people went through that, many people were killed, communities destroyed. And how people, when they were interviewed, said it was the worst thing they could even imagine happening. And maybe you can see the parallels to what's going on now. But when these people were interviewed 1 year later, literally, these same people now said that that tornado, which was the worst thing they could even imagine happening, was now the best thing that ever happened to them, their family, or their community. So what happened to make such a difference in the way they perceive this tornado? And one of the most common responses I got in telling the story over the years is the way that people come together at a time of tragedy or trauma. And I'm feeling this very emotionally as I'm sharing this with you. But I really believe, when I've looked at this for so long and so often, is that maybe the greatest purpose or reason or benefit for this cancer experience or the tornado is it helps us to reprioritize our lives. You know, when we're dealing with a life-threatening situation, it really can make us pause to think about, why do we even want to live? How do you want to spend the time you have left? And so I found myself developing, around the wellness program I taught, information regarding the will to live, and how we know that if people have a strong will to live, it really does make a difference. And so in that process, and I ended up writing a book called Doctor's Orders Go Fishing, I asked people to think about what it is they do to go fishing, to bring more joy and meaning into their lives. And believe me, people came up with lots and lots of different things that really had great meaning for them and brought them joy. But in the end, after they made these very extensive lists, and then I asked them to prioritize those lists, what is really the most important, if you could make that determination, and 3 things almost always top that list. 1 were your spiritual beliefs, 2, family, and 3, friends. So maybe this is a time, especially when we're asked to stay at home now and have more time where we can be quiet and reflect. What really does matter most to you? What is essential and non-essential? I'm sure you're familiar with those terms now when we've considered this virus and what we really need to think about and prioritize as we move forward. And so I encourage you at this time to let it be a time of self-inquiry and reflection indeed. And maybe what it does, or what does need to be examined, healed, and released. I honestly believe that this is a time for inner healing and for healing relationships. And also, on a global scale, a time for healing the air we breathe, the food we eat, the water we drink. Everything happens for a reason. I really believe that. And I see this now as a time to let go and really see a bigger picture. I encourage you very definitely, through whatever method that makes sense to you, again, prayer, contemplation, to go within and ask yourself, is there anything I need to change or shift at this time? Whether we talk about and term this great wisdom that underlies and connects everything, God, Spirit, or the universe, it is always talking to us. And it's just that we need to listen. So perhaps you can see this virus as a much-needed wake-up call and truly a blessing in disguise. And I would even propose to be grateful for it. I honestly think and believe so strongly that there really is an underlying force that connects everything and is completely benevolent. But when we have a difficult experience like now dealing with this virus, it really can be difficult, honestly, to believe it can serve a purpose, that we can see anything positive in this. But I remember when I was asking over the years in dealing with cancer, dealing with people recovering from strokes, and things didn't go well at all, is how do we make sense of suffering? How do we make sense of these difficult times, especially if there's an all-knowing, all-loving God? And I remember one time being given a question to help me consider this. And the question was, could God ever intend harm? And so hopefully at this time, this will help you build your own trust and actually learn to love what is and not judge. I believe we have very important work to do. And another important question around this at any time is, does life serve a purpose? Why are you here? I honestly believe that we signed up for this. We knew what was coming at a deep level. And now, as this important work, we need to learn to shine our light. And remember, we create our own reality. What is it that you choose to do now? I honestly believe if you really go within, as the saying goes, know this truth, and the truth will set you free. There is nothing to fear. Easy for me to say, but I mean it sincerely. If you really are willing to go within and look more closely at the truth of who you are, and that there's always purpose, even if it doesn't seem like it's a very positive one. So knowing that you really do create your reality, we know this through science. What is it you choose to create? And I believe you can use this time of isolation to realize you are never alone. And you can look within for guidance and direction. So like my tornado story or my cancer experience, where people actually said after having had cancer, and even as a family member, how difficult that time was, but they could reflect back and say their lives actually became richer and fuller as a result of that experience. So, again, what really matters? What really is essential? And what do you want to do about it? A spoiler alert is if you choose to do this, the answer has something to do with learning to love yourself. So I'd just like to leave you and read you something quickly before we end as a way to help us refocus on a potential purpose for this coronavirus and how we can shine our light and indeed create a much rewarding experience. I believe this virus is reminding us that we are all equal, regardless of our culture, religion, occupation, financial situation, gender, or how famous we are. This disease treats all of us equally, and perhaps we should too. It is reminding us that we are all connected, and something that affects one person has an effect on another. It is reminding us that the false borders that we have put up have little value, as this virus does not need a passport. It is reminding us, by oppressing us for a short time, of those in this world whose whole life is spent in oppression. It is reminding us of how precious our health is and how we have moved to neglect it through polluting the air we breathe, through eating nutrient-poor manufactured food, and drinking water that is contaminated with chemicals upon chemicals. If we don't look after our health, we will, of course, get sick. So please, take care of yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. So alignment with love. You know, something you just said reminds me of some photographs I've seen recently of major cities around the world that for the first time in months or even years, there's no pollution, there's no clouds, there's no anything that's preventing them to see the scenery around them, the mountains around them, they've not seen in decades because of the pollution. So, yeah, there's got to be a bigger purpose for all of this than what we might be experiencing. So align yourself with love. Beautiful message. Thank you. So we've come to the conclusion. I'm going to ask Dean if he'll come back up before we sing our peace song, and we're going to extinguish the chalice. And Dean, there's a little extinguisher there, if you would please. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now I ask Ray if he'll cue up and let's sing our peace song. Again, this has been pre-recorded by Jeff Lovejoy It's a fabulous opportunity to sing our peace song from wherever you are, right? In closing, I leave you with a final thought from A Course in Miracles as published in the Living with Spirit by Whole Systems Support. Let the Spirit teach you quietly how to perceive your gentleness, which is already there. I thank you for being with us today. Look forward to seeing you at the Foof Cafe at noon. Until then, take care.